Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. First, I'd like to go ahead and apologize to everybody that there was no video, no podcast last week. For that, I definitely apologize. I had a couple of homework assignments and papers to write, so I didn't get around to doing it. Plus, I wanted the opportunity to do a little bit more research on tonight's topic, so I have a little bit more to say than I probably would have last week. But to make up for this, not only am I doing the video tonight, but this upcoming week is spring break for my school, and since I'm not going anywhere and I don't have any plans, maybe I'll churn out an extra video or two within the next week just to go ahead and catch up on missed ground right here. But tonight's topic, we're going to go ahead and continue from last week. Last week, my friend Matt went ahead and suggested that I do the best and worst Red Rangers. As stated before, I was going to go ahead and break them up in two videos. So tonight we're going to go ahead and do, in what my opinion is, the 5 worst Red Rangers in Power Rangers. Now, this list again is all my opinion, and this is just from experiences from watching the shows and looking at these characters. Because, the Red Ranger is the core focus of the team. He is the leader, and he needs to be able to stand out from the other Rangers to where, that guy's the leader. That's who we're following into battle. That's the guy who's going to help us win the day. And I thought that the best Rangers that described that were last week. Again, not the 5 best, but the 5 I liked. And this is just a list of Rangers that I don't think are the best leaders, are the best characters, and overall really just not that interesting. And I do want to go ahead and mention this before I start. I'm not going to include him on the list because, again, we're only a few episodes into the series. Troy will not be included on this list as of right now. The only reason I would like to include him is for his now infamous line, "I'm new in town. I can't be the Red Ranger." Yeah, I mean, that could qualify him for the list, but again, I'm going to give the series benefit of the doubt, so I'm going to have to wait on that. But we're definitely going to go into, 5 Rangers that I just think didn't really pan out, didn't really go ahead and cut it. No particular order right here that I'm going, so again, one's not going to be worse than the others. But I'm going to go ahead and start out with Connor McKnight, the Red Dino Thunder Ranger. And, Connor is that kid in high school that you really don't want to be friends with because he is the personification of the dumb jock. That was his role in the first episode. And to be quite honest, he didn't go through much character change throughout the series. Well, let me go ahead and start right here. Again, he is the dumb jock. He's not... When you look at the high school setting, you look at people who are sympathetic, and the dumb jock is really not that sympathetic unless he does learn something by the end. Lankara points out in his History of Power Rangers that he remains pretty much the same, but he is a little bit more compassionate. And I don't think that being more compassionate really saved his character throughout the series. He's a very selfish character. He's a very dumb character. And he just has priorities way out of line here. I forget the name of the episode off the top of my head, but, he wanted to give up being the Red Ranger just so he can go ahead and attend a soccer game. Priorities like that are really, be a high school soccer game, which you have like 200 of every season. Soccer has so many games, it's just as bad as baseball. Or be the Red Ranger. Easy for a lot of us, I think, to make that choice, definitely being the Red Ranger. But what compounds this, really is that, how do I want to go ahead and say this? What compounds this is that the other Rangers throughout the series always have the opportunity to give up their powers, to relinquish it, to give it to somebody else. Now, Kimberly's transferred to Catherine and that whole subplot in season 3 notwithstanding. Jason could have gave up his powers, Orko, Tommy, TJ, Andros. All powers are pretty much transferable. In the Dino Thunder, they are not transferable. Once Connor got hold of the Dino Gem, he became the Red Ranger permanently. It was tied to his body, to his life force, to his DNA, however it was specifically explained, but he could not give up being the Red Ranger. Because the Dino Gem was tied to him. So what that tells me is that this is a guy who we're stuck with. We can't get rid of him. And we're stuck with the worst type of character. And for somebody who is very athletic, it was mentioned in the series that he can't swim. Good luck figuring that one out. He's kind of a klutz and all that, and he doesn't want to train. I'm sure if it was soccer, he would have no problem training, but Tommy has to, twist his arm to get him to train to be a ranger and all that. It's just... I don't get why we're supposed to like this character. Because, this premiered in, I want to say, was it 2003? And I was still in high school. Now, I knew some guys who were like Connor. And if I had to pick a team of Rangers, I wouldn't pick guys like Connor. I guess it's the idea, the series was going with was, they were going back to the high school. We were going back to, teenagers again. And they really did get the most unlikely characters. I mean, really, of the 3 original Dino teens, in Dino Thunder, those Dino teens, Ethan seems to be the most likely to be a Ranger because, we got the smart, nerdy guy, we have the selfish soccer jock, and we got the emo girl. Now, one of those is definitely a Ranger material, and the other 2 are not, and Connor really happens to be one of them there. I'm not going to spend too much time on Connor, but, again, it's just that you don't expect him to be a Ranger. He really shouldn't be a Ranger. Very selfish. Definitely an idiot. That's really all I'm going to say about Connor at the moment. The next on the list, I put him on here because it's more of an exercise of where he fits better and kind of a compare and contrast. And that's Rocky DeSantos, the second Red Mighty Morphin Ranger. Now, the thing with Rocky is he's not a bad character. He is a lot of fun, and he's really enjoyable. However, he does not make a good Red Ranger. When I think of Rocky, I think of him as Zeo Ranger 3 Blue. I think of him as the Blue Ranger. I don't have this image in my mind of where I see him, I think, the Red Ranger. I mean, most people, if you think of Adam, people see Black Mighty Morphin Ranger. I personally see Zeo Ranger 4 Green, but you have them in these roles. That's where they belong. That's the type of character that they are. And Rocky just didn't seem like the Red Ranger type for me. Now, granted, at this time in the series, Tommy was already established as the leader, so he was filling out, I guess, second in command, but really it should have been Billy or Kimberly who had been second in command at that point, something that the movie emphasizes. Let me kind of explain it this way, is that you have Jason, who I've already described as, one of the best Red Rangers, and I think everybody would agree that he is one of the best Red Rangers of all time. And we got this great, powerful leader that just left the team, and we're replacing him with Rocky, who seems a bit airheaded, doltish, and I guess for lack of a better term, playful. Hence the episode Rocky just wants to have fun. And it's really a day to night kind of thing, going from Jason to Rocky. It's just like they pull a 180 on us, and we're going to get somebody to replace Jason, but he's not going to be like Jason whatsoever. He's going to be completely opposite from him. And it just didn't work, because to hear his mouth or hear his voice come from that costume, to come from the original Red Ranger costume, it just doesn't sound right. It's like those guys who do the parody dubs and all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't sound like that should be coming out of there. Because he's taking over, with the way the Sentai footage was, he was taking over the role of the Red Ranger as well as the pilot of the Red Dragon Thunder Zord, the second leader of the team and pilot of the Thunder Megazord. And his voice and his mannerisms and his characteristics just don't fit. He was meant to be the playful one, which Jason was not. He was kind of taking over Zach's role in that regard. The Zach of the original 5 was the playful one, and with Zach gone, I guess they needed Rocky to go ahead and do that, but just didn't mesh with the character that came before and what was already ingrained in our memories of who the Red Ranger is, and really our fledgling idea of what the Red Ranger should be. I mean, for those 2 years Rocky was the Red Ranger, it just didn't really work, I think. By the time we got around to him being the Blue Ranger, I thought that was really good. We got Tommy as the leader again, but he's officially the Red Ranger. And, because Tommy had that commanding presence just like Jason. Rocky can't do that. I think the most intimidating thing he ever said was in the movie when he's, confronting Ivan Ooze. Other than that, he's got some one-liners in the movie, one-liners in the show, and that's just about it. And, he was really just kind of dull, I guess, I don't know. It's just really difficult for me to take him seriously as being the Red Ranger. And again, and a lot of that does have to do with coming right after Jason. I don't think it's so much a problem with the actor, Stephen Cardenas. Again, they needed somebody to be a Red Ranger who was not going to be a leader because they just brought Tommy back, but he just didn't find his place until he became the Blue Ranger, and unfortunately that only lasted a season since he left and He Who Should Not Be Named came next. But yeah, that's all I'm going to go ahead and say about Rocky. Let's move to the next one. The next one I'm going to go ahead and have is Casey Rose, the Red Jungle Fury Ranger. Now, one of the things about Jungle Fury that just annoys me is all the main Rangers, save for RJ, look like they're preteens or tweens or whatever term you want to go ahead and use. I mean, this is something that I think was probably borrowed from the Sentai. And what I mean is, if you look at all the Super Sentais, all the Red Rangers they have going up to, I'm just going to say up to Zoo Ranger. Just in that point, they're all men. They look like adults, and they can command this presence. Somewhere down the road, and I can't pinpoint exactly when this is, it looks like that all the Sentai Rangers were replaced by 12-year-olds. And I'm looking at you, Atla, and I believe I pronounced that right, Gosei Red. They just look like they're little kids that were put into the role of being Power Rangers, or Super Sentai in this case. Casey is that to me. He's another rookie Red Ranger that just looks like he doesn't belong. The role is supposed to be for an older character, and who has a little bit of wisdom to him, at least in some portions where he's written. But this actor, this character, it just can't pull it off. It's really hard for me to articulate exactly what's wrong with him. Again, the Red Ranger is supposed to have that commanding presence and supposed to kind of fill into their role. That they're supposed to go ahead, even if you have the rookie Red Ranger, he's supposed to grow into his role of being the Red Ranger, accepting responsibility and becoming better for that. Now, I'm not going to deny that Casey didn't have character development. I mean, that's far from the truth. It's just that there wasn't enough. Because what I did is I watched Welcome to the Jungle Part 1 and then Now the Final Fury back to back, just to see if I could see any changes in the actor's performance. And I don't know, I just couldn't see any difference in this character. Again, really hard for me to kind of describe to you guys what it is, but you just look at him and you're like, what? He's the Red Ranger? I mean, it just doesn't seem to go ahead and flow. I wish I could give you guys a more concrete answer, but I watched a couple of episodes that were mainly focused on him, and I just couldn't come up with the exact words to describe why I didn't like him, why I thought he didn't fit. And that has nothing to do with the Sentai, even though I made references to it. It's just the idea that they got a young character in there that just doesn't fit the role. And Casey, definitely it doesn't go ahead and work for him. I might go into a little bit more detail on him when I eventually talk about Jungle Fury, and I have a lot of things to say about Jungle Fury. But I think I'm just going to go ahead and keep his short because, again, it's just a lot of things that I can't describe about exactly, but I just don't like him. The next Red Ranger on here is Scott Truman, the Red RPM Ranger, or, excuse me, Dr. K, Ranger Series Operator Red. Dumb title, and really bad character. First, I'm going to talk about the acting, because the acting is just, this guy is... I don't know if he was reading cue cards half the time. I think this was like his first major acting role. But, it looks like he stepped out of High School Musical. It really did. Which, again, I think is one of the main criticisms of a lot of the later characters, particularly the Megaforce characters, is that they do look like they are appealing to certain demographics of people. And also, I will say, I can't take him seriously with that hair. I'm sorry, you can't take a Power Ranger seriously when they have an afro like that. Let me kind of get on track right here. The thing about Scott is, again, like Casey and like Rocky, he doesn't command the presence that he needs to be a Red Ranger. And when I look at his background, we know he's the son of Colonel Truman, and he has a brother that he looked up to. I would say it's a Faramir, Boromir, Denethor relationship, but I think that's giving it too much credit, because it definitely seems in the episode Ranger Red that Colonel Truman does favor his older brother. That his older brother is the more skilled pilot. He is the more skilled leader, and he has all these qualities in him. But Scott is really just kind of trying to live up to his brother and to his father's expectations. We've seen this before. It's really tedious and boring to watch this again, and I just don't want to hear that story again. And it seems like the only reason he kind of got the Red Ranger position is his connection to Colonel Truman. Yeah, I know he displays certain acts within the series, but it just doesn't seem to me like he really deserved to be the Red Ranger. Additionally to that, his whole relationship with the others, and particularly Dylan, this whole antagonism between the two, it just didn't work, because I never really see Scott as being in the right. And then again, I only see Dylan being in the right, but Dylan's just being a jerk to be a jerk half the time. And don't get me wrong, I like Dylan's character. It's just that these arguments they had between the two just really don't work within the context. And here's another thing. One of the main complaints I have about RPM is that RPM does not feel like this is the last ounce of humanity left in the world. That these are the last people fighting a desperate war to keep the machines at bay. And Scott is a prime example of that. He does not look like... Now, I know the character is like, he was starting off in training before the Vengeance attack, so he's, green, he's raw, he's just out of the academy, or he might still be in the academy. It was never, I don't think it was really explained. But for a character who is supposed to, again, be the last leader in the army against humanity, and the last line of defense in the Power Rangers, he doesn't carry that burden. He doesn't have the weight of the world on his back like he should. And I think that's the biggest sin against him, is that he and the other Rangers just seem too nonchalant about it. If you had Scott as, say Scott was the Red Turbo Ranger instead of TJ, it would work better. Would it work perfectly? No. But it would be better because you're fighting Divatox. Things are pretty much peaceful. It's not really that bad. Machine Empire's gone, and the next major threat hasn't come yet. And you could have that nonchalant attitude and the lack of the weight of the world on your shoulders kind of mentality in Turbo. You cannot have that in RPM. And again, I've said this before, RPM was kind of sold as Terminator Salvation meets Wolverine, X-Men Origins Wolverine. So if we had Scott like John Connor as this ragged, tired soldier who's obsessed with defeating the machines, it makes sense. Would it be cliche? Maybe. But it would fit better. Because, Scott goes out and does his stuff like, the world's not going to go ahead and end. Things are just going to be fine. He's too upbeat about it. When the only thing protecting him is maybe a few meters of steel and transparent aluminum, maybe, from poisonous gases and machines that want to exterminate humankind. Again, I can't emphasize enough that this is the last pocket of resistance. Humanity, from what we are told, is pretty much just, maybe 10,000 people or less, just the inhabitants of a city. So maybe 1 million, but that's about it. If there's only 1 million people left on Earth, I don't think Scott or the other Rangers would act the way they are. And that's why I just don't think he's a good Ranger. He doesn't carry what he should. He doesn't act like he should. And that just... It's just not what I expected. It's not what I think the show needed. And if anybody wants a reason why we got the redubbed or remastered first season episodes, yeah, you can look to RPM for that. Now I'm going to go ahead and end this video. It's probably going to be a little bit shorter than my others, just because, again, it's a little bit harder to describe these guys. But the last one I want to go talk about, actually I'm going to talk about two. And that's going to be Jaden and Lauren Sheba. Now, Samurai has a lot of problems. And a lot of it does come from the adaptation of the Sentai and what they were trying to go ahead and accomplish. Now, to the credit of Samurai, they did keep a number of good things in there. And one was the idea that another person would come to claim to be the leader of the Power Rangers, would be the new Red Ranger, and not so much divide the current team, but really just kind of put them in doubt as to what they were doing. And that's a good storyline. Nothing wrong. It really worked in Shinkanger, but it doesn't work in Samurai and Super Samurai. First, we got Jaden. I don't know where Saban got these actors, but this season, they definitely hired a bunch of jocks. I mean, it was said at one point that the original season, or a lot of other seasons, hired actors to be athletes, but in this season they hired athletes to be actors, and it really, really showed. And Jaden's definitely one of those guys. The thing about Jaden is that he doesn't have, I guess, a definable personality. And you think he's going to do one thing, but he does another. But that's because you can't predict him because his character is not really solidified. I mean, we have the other Rangers. We have Emily, who is the young, the innocent one. Okay, there we go. We got Kevin, who's the dedicated, studious one. Also a little bit of the bumbler. You have Mike, who is the tough, rebellious one. And by the way, my favorite Samurai Ranger. And then we got Mia, who's the motherly figure and the one who can't cook and all that kind of stuff. So those personalities are defined, not well, but they're defined. Jaden is just the leader. We're told things about him, we're shown flashbacks, but we never get the sense of who he really is. And, this even goes into his relationship with Antonio. They're supposed to be the best of friends, but the chemistry between Antonio and Jaden on screen, that doesn't work either. It's just really odd to watch this guy act, and it's almost like he's talking to a wall half the time. His expressions are wrong, his delivery is wrong. And yes, I am attacking on the actor right here because he has to make the character, and there is no character. He hasn't made anything. And, let's move on to Lauren real quick right here. Lauren came out of nowhere. Again, same situation from, from Shinkanger, but it was just pulled off poorly. First, she comes like 3 or 4 episodes before the end. And keep in mind, this was a season where it was 2 years long. Granted, it was only 40 episodes, but 2 years long. That should have been enough time, 1, for character development, and 2, to really introduce her as a character. The princess shows up pretty much in the same fashion as Shinkanger, completely out of nowhere. But the princess has a more definable personality, she's more likable, and I think she accomplishes more. Lauren, on the other hand, accomplishes squat. She doesn't do anything, she gets hurt, she leaves, we're supposed to be teary-eyed and sad, and that's about it. They did do a good job of showing her as a competent leader, for as little as she did, a skilled fighter and all that. But that's what we were showing to the other Rangers, that they were all competent and skilled. There had to be something more. And the relationship between Jaden and Lauren, it just didn't seem natural to me. I'm watching the episode where, she's hurt, she's got arm sling, and she's looking up at the stars, and she goes, look at those stars. Reminds you of what you're fighting for. And first of all, I just thought that line is like, so you're fighting for the stars? Did I miss something? I don't know what that line exactly meant, but they don't have a closeness as brother and sister. They don't have an antagonistic relationship. It doesn't feel like they are brother and sister. They're just 2 actors who met one day and had to get their lines together. Michael Caine, he said in an acting video that I saw, pretty much, don't get too intimate with the person that you're playing against and all that, but at least get to know them and work with them. And it just didn't seem to me like those 2 actors really worked with each other, because, again, they have no chemistry as brother and sister. If you want a good brother and sister pair, Bart and Lisa work better in that context. And something to go ahead and, I guess, point out about Jaden and Lauren is, when in Shinkanger, Takura, I believe is his name, the Shinken Red had to leave. The reason that they were given is that he's like, I'm a liar, I'm a fraud, I'm not the hero you thought I am, and I just can't stand to be around here anymore. Jaden leaves just because I'm not the Red Ranger anymore. Gotta go. Bye. I'm serious. That's pretty much the gist of it. He doesn't really go, and the show doesn't go into detail about why he's leaving, why is it important for him to get the heck out of here. I wish I could tell you more than that, but that's it. I mean, he's like, I gotta go, can't be a Red Ranger anymore. That lasts all about 2 seconds because he's back by I think within the same episode or by the next episode. Yeah, just not good, clear motivation for what he's doing there. So yeah, these guys don't work mainly because of their actors, mainly because of the story they were written into and who they were supposed to play as opposed to who they were and became, basically. So that's all I have to really go ahead and say about the Red Rangers. I think in my worst list, I remember last week telling you guys that it was easier to talk about the bad ones, but for characters that are really, really dull, like Connor, like Casey, like Jaden and all that, it's really hard to come up with specific, words to describe these guys. So I do apologize if this video wasn't up to the standards previously. I'm going to try my best to, kind of work on that, do a little bit better job next time. Again, the topic was just a little bit more difficult because it's easier to say what Rangers you don't like as to, specific, colors, I guess, in this case. But I want to thank you guys for joining me. Once again, I apologize for not having a video last week, but keep your eyes open this week. I'm going to try and have a couple more videos on out before I head back to classes, and hopefully you guys will like what I'll have. So if you want to go ahead and submit a topic, please email me. The email will be at the end of the video here, or please leave a comment in the comment section. Otherwise, you guys have a good night, a good weekend, and the tavern is now closed.